Hello and welcome back to another episode of Chrono Royals. I'm Vesper. Today we explore a title that has seen kings rise, dynasties fall, and reputations forged, and now sullied. The Dukedom of York. This is not just a story about a title. It is a story about duty, expectation, ambition, failure, and endurance. And at its heart, it reflects the pressures of the modern monarchy with all of its inherited scandals. But before I deep dive and go any further, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already done so. I'm also inviting you to participate and contribute in the comment section to let us know your thoughts on this particular topic that seems to be making all the headlines and a lot of noises. So, go ahead and sit back, relax, and let's get started. All right, let's get started. Question of the day. What do we know of the Dukedom of York? I know, it's kind of hard to remember. And so this is where I come in, because you know me and history, we're best friends. And I'm also a believer that in order to know where we're going in the future, we must comprehend where we come from and where our roots come from. So, the title Duke of York is one of the most storied in the history of the British crown. From medieval kings to modern monarchs, it has been bound to both triumph and tragedy. But today, the title stands sullied, almost irredeemable, tarnished by scandal, greed, and disgrace. To understand just how far it has fallen, we must go back to the very, very beginning. And so, again, let's go on to this journey of a quick history refresher, okay? The Dukedom of York was first created in 1385 for Edmund of Langley, the fourth surviving son of King Edward III. As the founder of the House of York, he set in motion the dynastic struggles that would define what we all know as the Wars of the Roses. Since then, the title has almost always been given to the second son of the monarch. It was never meant to reach the throne, and yet fate has showed us that often it had other plans. Do you want to know something oddly strange and satisfying about history? It's the fact that it reveals a striking pattern when you look back. The Dukedom of York has again and again produced unexpected kings. For example, Edward IV, born into the Yorkist claim, he seized the throne in 1461, reshaping England's monarchy during the Wars of the Roses. Then there was Richard III, the son of the third Duke of York. He claimed the crown after his brother's death, remembered forever for the mystery of the princes in the tower. Then there was Henry VIII. As a child, he bore the title Duke of York. But when his elder brother, Prince Arthur, died, he inherited not just the crown, but the destiny of a dynasty. Then came James II, styled Duke of York before becoming king. His reign ended in exile after the Glorious Revolution. Following that, there was George V, the grandfather of the late Queen Elizabeth II. He first held the title Duke of York before rising to the throne. And next, we have King George VI, the reluctant monarch, who wore the title Duke of York before fate had other plans and placed a crown upon his head. Among all these men, it is King George VI, father of Queen Elizabeth II, who gave the title its greatest dignity. We all know he never wanted to be king. He was extremely shy, plagued by a stammer, and wholly unprepared for the role. But when his brother, King Edward VIII, abdicated and a constitutional crisis came down upon the monarchy, and this famous scandal, he rose to the occasion. He was reluctant, but he was also resolute. As king, he became a symbol of courage in Britain's darkest hour. During World War II, he stood with his people through the Blitz, through the war, through the fire. The Duke of York had become the unexpected savior of the monarchy. The title carried not just lineage at this point, but honor. And if I may add, we all know the late Queen was extremely proud of her father. She was so proud of him. She admired him. After all, it was her papa. And she knew firsthand his personality and how he rose to the occasion. And perhaps this is why Queen Elizabeth II entrusted the title to her second son, Prince Andrew. She hoped, as she once said of her father, that Andrew would be a pillar in both good times and in bad. But obviously, history gave us the opposite. Instead of duty, scandal. Instead of dignity, disgrace. Andrew dragged the dukedom into the gutter, tarnished by greed, entitlement, and association with men of infamy. The title of York, once elevated by King George VI, now sits sullied, almost beyond repair and redemption at this point, if you ask me. So the question arises, when Andrew is gone, because time only moves forward and not backward, will the Dukedom of York die with him? Or will it someday pass to a new generation? Perhaps to Prince Louis, to restore what has been lost, or to bury it forever and completely? That is a question I would love to live long enough to see. Seriously, I would love to know in the future if this dukedom will survive. But of course, as we know, only time will tell, right? And at this time, this is also where we're going to zoom out. We're going to zoom out of this entire history scope and fast forward to present day. Because the scandal of Andrew, and indeed the drama of Sarah Ferguson, is not just about individuals. It places the king, King Charles, directly in a predicament unlike any monarch before him. You see, we live in an age where scandal itself has changed, where cancel culture, quote unquote, has become the new guillotine. In the past, royals were dragged to the scaffold. Today, they are dragged across headlines. The mob does not merely ask for accountability, it demands obliteration. So when people say, why won't Charles disown Andrew? Why is Fergie still there? Why is King Charles allowing Fergie to this and that? Why not cut Fergie loose? Well, the answer is a little bit more complex than we think. If Charles throws Andrew through the wolves, Andrew does not vanish. He becomes a weapon from the outside. He sells his story for a few bucks because we all know the Yorks need money. He fuels the tabloids. He wages war on the crown. By keeping Andrew close, Charles does not condone him. He contains him. You know, contains a mad dog. Because if you let a mad dog loose, you don't know who he's going to bite. And it's going to fall back on you. So you contain the dog. Metaphorically. So, to the public, this surely looks like King Charles is weak. It looks like weakness, doesn't it? To William, the Prince of Wales, it is perhaps hesitation. But in truth, and I hope Prince William will realize this in the future or at some point, that this is strategy. And this is where my personal speculation and my personal opinion comes in play. I know I have a very unpopular opinion compared to most. I am not your typical YouTuber who's all about spewing the latest news or the newest gossip, or I don't have any secret sources as others claim to have. I don't have insider tell-all kind of friends, you know. I speak specifically on pure opinions, but my theories and my opinions are also based and backed by, let's just say, common sense and deeply rooted in tradition as well as a history. And I'm going to explain all this, okay? I'm going to explain all this. You see, I see King Charles as a transitional sovereign. He is not Queen Elizabeth. He will not reign for 70 years. He may or may not even get to a silver jubilee. His reign is definitely going to be shorter, more fragile, defined by scandal inherited, not created. I know. Oh, sure. So a lot of you are going to be like, oh, sure, he had scandals. Yes, I'm not denying he hasn't. Of course, when King Charles was then Prince Charles, Prince of Wales, he was plagued by scandals left and right, especially during the Diana era. But beyond that, not really. I mean, he's always made tabloids here and there because he's the heir to the throne, so obviously he's going to get picked on no matter what. But scandals of his own doing, not really. And, you know, seeing him as a transitional sovereign, that is perhaps his role in history. Fate has placed him in this particular timeline to be a monarch, a sovereign, for a particular reason. We all know everything happens for a reason. I mean, he is the longest heir. He was the longest heir to the throne. I mean, he has been waiting for the throne or for his day or for his moment for as long as he can remember, because his mom has been queen for such a long time, and he's still living with the shadow of Her Majesty's long, extraordinary reign. So, of course, King Charles, I see him as a transitional sovereign, transitional king. Perhaps, again, that is the role he's meant to play in history, to absorb all his poison, to carry the scandals of Andrew, the rebellion of Harry, the controversies of his family, so that the monarchy itself may endure. In this way, Charles Charles becomes almost a martyr king. You know, it's weird. It's almost like there's this deeply strange poetic motion that sets in when I think about it, and I know you might be thinking, what in the world is she talking about? A martyr king? No way. Well, yes, way. And I say that because, again, that is my personal opinion. You do not have to agree. You definitely don't have to agree with me, but I just want you to hear me out. And it's not that I'm always making excuses for King Charles, not at all. But I like to see the positive and the negative. How about that? I like to flip both sides of the coins and to look at both sides and try to see if there's a place in the middle where we can compromise or see if there can be any good coming out of this bad, pretty much, So when I say there's something almost and strangely poetic about it, and that Charles is, in my personal opinion, a martyr king, it's because he sacrifices his own popularity, even his legacy, to preserve the crown for William. Does that make sense? Because we all know that a lot of people are enraged, demanding, shouting for Prince Andrew and Fergie to literally be kicked out of their home and to pretty much be locked in the Tower of London. That's basically what everybody's saying without saying it. They're saying they want Fergie and Andrew to be gone. Okay, how much gone do you want them to be? Because as far as I'm concerned, they're not attending any royal public engagements. They haven't been invited to any public major royal functions. Sure, they show up, let's say, for Christmas morning walk to church. But that's Christmas morning. That's part of family. That's not a royal engagement. And no matter what they do, there will always be the press there. Okay? For example, last week, both Andrew and Fergie were seen attending the late Duchess of Kent's funeral. That was not a royal engagement. That was a funeral, and they're still he's still part of the family. She's just now his ex. And of course, she knew the Duchess of Kent. So she might have some good relations with the Kents. We don't know that. You don't know that. But there are no protocols saying Fergie cannot attend, saying that Andrew cannot attend. You see, we as people and spectators must know how to differentiate royal engagements and duties and representing the crown versus personal life and family events. Okay? I'm going to give you another example. After Prince Andrew was stripped off of all his titles and his world recognitions and all this and that, the Queen herself still allowed Andrew to accompany her at certain things. I remember there was once the service of Thanksgiving remembrance for Prince Philip about a year after his passing. Well, what do you know? Prince Andrew escorted the Queen. I didn't see anybody crying a river then, or maybe yes, there were. There's always somebody's going to cry about something or anything. But that didn't stop the Queen from, allowing Prince Andrew to be within her entourage. I mean, it's her son, Does that make sense? And so when I say that King Charles sacrifices his own popularity, even his legacy for Prince William, I say that also because let's say today Fergie and Andrew are both taken to the Tower of London, okay? Sure, King Charles is going to receive a lot of praise. He's going to receive a lot of thumbs up and following and all this. But that moment of positivity is only going to spike for one day or two. Because these people demanding all of this that are going to be spiking the general, approval rating for King Charles, they're also the very same people that are currently and that have always been sharpening their pitchforks in the background. Okay? The people that are all ranting and raving about King Charles not doing this or King Charles should do this, those are the double-edged swords people you should look out for. They're not real. They're fake. They're just looking for clicks and this and that and followers. They care more about gaining followers than being the voice of reason, and give you unbiased or a more open point of view. These people are all in for the ratings. So the louder they shout, the more they think it's going to be effective, but it's really not. I personally really am more afraid of those who speak slowly or with a more moderate tone than those who shout on the top of their lungs. Because you can see through with those that shout on top of their lungs and who cuss words and who, But those that are more quiet, more dignified, more restrained, more composed, those are the ones that I tend to lean to, because you don't have to shout to get a message across. That's what I've been taught. I don't know about you, but that's what I've been taught. That's what I've learned in life. You know what they say? Sometimes those who shout the loudest have nothing to say, but those who say nothing have the most to express. And so, find your median in between, okay? That's just a little quote-unquote advice for you. Also, when Prince William inherits the crown, when he inherits the throne, when he inherits the job, when Prince William becomes the job, he will not inherit decades of festering scandals. His father will have taken those arrows and those shots for him. You see, as a transitional king, as a transitional monarch, King Charles, as a father, a devoted father, and because he knows that the throne is going to William next, as a father, I would assume, and it is logical to assume, that any parent out there would take the bullets for their kids. If you're a parent, you know what I'm talking about. No parent will dodge a bullet, okay? They'll take a bullet because that's just basic instinct. That's natural instinct. And throughout all this, and this is why I say there's something almost so poetic about King Charles' reign in the world of martyrdom, okay? Is because perhaps, not now, but perhaps in the future, history will look back and remember Charles not as weak, but as enduring, not as indulgent, but as sacrificial. The king who did not shine in glory, perhaps, who did not have the best approval ratings, perhaps, but who bore the darkness so that the monarchy could still stand in the light sometime down the road. And so perhaps this is King Charles' true role on the timeline of the British crown, I think. Perhaps that is his true role, to absorb the poison, to take the arrows, to carry the weight of family failures so that William can inherit a crown less burdened by scandal and can start a new reign on a new era with a clean slate. I don't see any weakness in that. I see sacrifice. I see endurance. But then, of course, a lot of people are going to disagree, and you're free to disagree. You're completely free to disagree. But I just wanted you to hear my point of view and my reasoning backing this point of view. You know, this is what we're here for discussions, to agree to disagree and then agree. This is what makes the world worth fighting for. This is what it makes us worth commenting on these topics, right? We don't have to always agree on the same points, but this is a battleground for conversation. And this is how I want to use my platform, for conversations, to toss ideas and to reflect and meditate on others' opinions in hopes that we can find a common ground somewhere. And to me, this is what humanity is all about. Learning to coexist despite our differences. We don't have to force our opinion on others and pass it as gospels. What we should do is listen to others' commentaries and use those commentaries so that we may form our own judgment. You know, that's the kind of influence we should give. And that is the kind of truth we should be giving people out there. Not just, she said, he said, ooh, I have a private source that said this. You know, my insider tip told me. Bullshit. You know, I call a lot of bullshit on all of these bullshitters. Because I today can very well claim that I have an insider tip too. You wouldn't know. It's my word against whoever else. You know, it's so easy just to have an insider tip. It's kind of like saying, I heard somebody say, well, who said? Well, I don't know. They did. Well, who's they? Well, I don't know. I'm not supposed to say it. Then bullshit. I don't care about the proofs you have. If you can't name a source, then that's bullshit. Well, you know, half the time. I'm not saying nobody has sources. I'm sure they do. I'm sure some of them do, but a lot of them probably don't. And that's, again, based on common sense. Okay? Now, switching gears again, going back to Fergie and Andrew, in terms of punishment, what is the appropriate punishment for these two and their awful behavior, their despicable behavior, their disgraceful behavior? Well, like I said, a lot of people pretty much want to bring back the scaffold and get them through the guillotine, just like in the old days. However, we all know that's not going to happen. And so everybody wants King Charles to kick them out of Royal Lodge, pretty much go live wherever they want, far away from the monarchy, far away from the family, in hopes that they are forever banished from public life or public view. Okay? And I personally think that yes, they should move out of Royal Lodge because that place is too big for the two of them. Not only that, they can't afford the upkeeps of that place. And also the fact that Fergie herself, having been divorced for almost 3 decades now, she just needs to like man up, you know, put on her big girl's pants and hats and go out there and live her life just like how other royals do, on their own, by their own means. She's just weird. Also, Fergie herself, I don't know. I've never really liked her very much in terms of what she became or what she was when she was within the family and then what she became afterwards. Because for me personally, nothing major against Fergie, but she's way too hyper for my taste. She's way too hyper, too loose of a cannon. Okay, she's the kind of chick that runs her mouth unnecessarily just to sound important or just to make herself relevant, pretty much like Meghan Markle. And her punishment is that she's already been dropped left and right as a patron for the different and various charities she has supported over the years. And not only that, again, she's not invited to any major royal events or any public engagements. Same thing with Andrew. The both of them have pretty much been living under a rock. And Fergie has managed time and time again to resurface here and there over the years, despite having written 2 memoirs detailing her downfall, her stupidity, and her lack of restraint, right? And when it comes to Prince Andrew, again, he's already been stripped of all his titles. There's nothing about him that is relevant today. And as I've said all along, he single-handedly destroyed the legacy of the title Duke of York. He has sullied this title beyond redemption at this point. And he too should be casted out into the shadows. And he has been, but now more than ever. But again, who is going to invite these two anywhere? Even if King Charles doesn't do anything. I think the punishment itself will come from others and is coming from others. No one's going to invite Fergies to any talk shows anymore or to any red carpet events like she did last year in Cannes in France, where she showed up at the Cannes Film Festival, and she was ranting again, blabbering her mouth for nothing in particular, to said nothing in particular either. I mean, nobody's going to invite these two anywhere anymore, not even in royal circles, not even anywhere. They're friends, all that. I mean, people don't want to be associated with them anymore. And so to me, that is even bigger punishment than being banished from the kingdom, per se, quote unquote. And I think that's already quite fair. Not only that, they have in some ways tarnished their daughter's reputation. Now, Princess Eugenie and Princess Beatrice, both of them, yes, they have their own lives, they live their own lives away from the spotlight. They don't necessarily create any drama. There may be tensions between few members of the royal family, but which family doesn't have tensions? Aside from that, I mean, they're not really troublemakers. They live their own lives quietly, with dignity, despite the fact that their parents are total wrecks. So that in itself is already another huge punishment, because their two daughters now will live the rest of their lives overshadowed by their parents' behavior. And what a lame thing to do to your kids. What a lame thing to do. How can you expect to set the example when you're setting that type of precedent to your children? And so to me, that's gotta hurt them. That's gotta hurt the ego too. And perhaps Princess Eugenie and Princess Beatrice don't care, but I'm sure they do. Because everywhere they go now, they're gonna be like, people are gonna look at them sideways. Everywhere they go, no matter what. Because there will always be Fergie's daughters. They will always be Andrew's daughters. And that hurts. If I were them, I would feel completely betrayed by my parents. Because here I am, a princess of the kingdom, and my parents are just like that. And yes, I don't take out the factors that they would still love their parents, and their parents must love them to death, just like anybody out there would. But they're never going to get over this. They will live with this plague over their head for the rest of their lives, and that to me is punishment enough. So I really don't need King Charles to do anything more than just contain them at this point, because when William takes over, it'll be done. It'll be over. The scars will still be there, but the bleeding would have stopped by then. So again, it all goes back to have a little bit patience. And again, the monarchy has seen worse than this. Okay. And they'll live through it. They'll get through it. They'll digest this down. Tomorrow is a new day. Tomorrow there will be new things to talk about. And again, Fergie and Andrew, they're done. They did this to themselves. They've got no one else to blame but themselves. So let's back up a little bit. Let's back out. Let's not point fingers at King Charles so much. I'm not anyway. Yes, there are things he needs to put in place, but I don't need them to go to the towers. I don't need them to go through the guillotine. They've already severed their own heads. Nobody wants them. So to me, this punishment is bigger than anything. And for them to know that they're plaguing their children's lives forever, that's the biggest punishment. So that's my 2 cents on what is punishable in terms of what should be done to them. And again, everybody's dropping them already. Everybody hates them. You guys are doing pretty good with commenting and sharing your thoughts and ideas about these two on all of these major social media platforms like X, Facebook, Instagram, TikToks. I mean, there's parodies. There's things going on out there that are way out the track, but it is what it is, and they must live with the consequences of their own actions, period. But anyway, aside from all of this drama and these scandals and everything that comes with it, my question now is, what happens next? What happens to the Dukedom of York with all this? Because you see, the Dukedom of York is more than a title. It is a reflection of the monarchy itself. It is a branch of the monarchy. It can elevate. It can define a generation. It can rise to the top. And yes, it can also fall far deep into despair and into disgrace. And King Charles, in his quiet, strategic endurance, shows us that and what leadership can do and look like in an age of relentless scrutiny, of daily crucifixion. He may not shine the way you want him to. He may not be adored, but he absorbs the darkness so that others, the next generation, can carry the light. The story of the Dukedom of York is far from over, and perhaps in time, a new duke, will rise to restore what has been lost, what has been tarnished. But until then, history watches, and I'm watching, and I'm hoping that someday this title can shine again. Because if anything, history has taught us that it is not the title that is bad. It is the people who carry the title that mess it up. And that is precisely what makes the difference between royalists and monarchists. And that is also precisely the reason why a lot of people have mixed opinions, because they don't really know the difference. They think because one person screwed up, it means everybody else is going to screw up. No. Sometimes they think, well, this person never screwed up. Well, that doesn't mean the next one is going to or not going to screw up. So, a little bit of food for thoughts here and there for you guys and for you to reflect upon. And last but not least, I just want to touch on a very final thought. And I know this is very early in life to bring this up, but it somehow ties into this topic. So I'll go ahead and throw that in as an extra credit to gain some extra points from you guys so that you can participate in the comments, because a lot of you are so quiet. And I just want to tell me what you're thinking. Prove me wrong. Tell me what I'm doing wrong, or let me know why you think, I'm wrong or I'm right or whatever. Okay. Another food for thoughts here. You see, Prince William may not entirely agree with his father on a lot of his decisions, just like then Prince Charles did not always and totally agree with everything the Queen did. However, it would be wise for Prince William to also look at his position in terms of he too has 2 sons. And one of them is bound to become possibly the next Duke of York, unless that title is, like I said earlier, entirely dismantled and buried 6 feet under with the rest of history. However, we all know that Prince George is also a future king as well, and that there are bound to there's got to be jealousy somewhere. There's going to be jealousy somewhere within their little family circle, their little tight-knit unit, okay? And for example, we all know that in their youth, Prince Harry was always jealous of, not always, but somewhat jealous of a lot of things Prince William got to do that Prince Harry didn't get, or that because he's heir to the throne, he's got a little bit more privilege on certain things, and he's more privy to certain things versus Prince Harry. So now it's going to be the same thing for Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and especially Prince Louis being the youngest. There's always that stark contrast when you're the oldest child of the family and you're the youngest. When you're the oldest, you're babied like no other because you're the first, and especially in Prince George's case, you are the first and the heir to the throne. But also in this case, Prince Louis is also the baby of the family. So there's a lot more cuddling perhaps going on as well. And of course, we've seen his cheeky behavior. And we've also noticed how Prince George has a more of a quiet demeanor. He looks more reserved and quiet, and possibly not as cheeky, right, as his younger brother. And so there's almost this mirror image of Prince Harry and William in Prince Louis and Prince George. And so in the future, I am pretty sure that things will happen where Prince Louis might feel like, well, they love him more, and he might resent certain things. And it is my hope that Prince William can rise to the occasion and to pretty much create a more harmonious entente, une entente cordiale, comme on dit, right? Une entente cordiale in the sense that there will not be any of these dramas in the future. But then again, it's too soon to tell, it's too early to say and speculate. So I will leave that for the future to unfold. And boy, do I want to be there when it happens. But, I might not, and we might not. So let's hope for the best, right? And so this brings me to the end of this commentary. And if you've been here all this time, you're good. You're good. And I appreciate you for this. I truly do. You know, sometimes it's like I feel like I'm talking in the void. And sometimes I feel like I'm wondering if someone's thinking like this as well. And so this is why I reach out, and I'm just thrilled that you're here. And then I want to thank you again for sticking all the way to the very end, because a lot of people don't, so they miss the point and they don't get the whole message. So again, thank you so very much from the bottom of my heart for being here with me to the end, for sticking with me and us, all of us here. And please let me know in the comment section if you agree or disagree with me, and back it up with your reasoning, because I want to know what you think. Perhaps my train of thoughts is completely off the track. So reason me out. But I just wanted to share these little tidbits of point of views with you, and so we can converse and share our ideas to find some common ground and some common sense, right? So anyway, again, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe this video with your friends out there, for anyone who'd like to see this, or for anyone who thinks the complete opposite of me, because I'm not looking just for people who agree. I'm also looking for people who disagree, okay? Because it's only by disagreeing that we can come to an agreement. And I know word salad, a lot of word salad. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, again, thank you so much for being here. As always, as ever, take care, and I'll see you very soon in the next video. This is Vespera signing off.